Good idea. Good idea. Very interesting how they do that. All right, we'll call the April 29th special council meeting to order. Chief Huntley, would you give the invocation, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this wonderful day, Lord. We just thank you for everyone that's gathered here this evening. Lord, we just ask that all those that are struggling this evening, got loved ones that are struggling, Lord, that you just reach down, comfort them, and guide them, Lord. We just ask that you watch over this meeting tonight, Lord, and we ask that you watch over all of those that are watching over us every single day and night. In your name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Captain Deininger, would you lead us in the pledge, please? The clerk will call the roll.
Taylor,
Present.
Peterson,
Present.
Lease, Heckmaster,
Present.
Edge,
Present.
Snow, Barlow, Cossey,
Here.
Schramm. The red light needs to be on.
Yep, there we go.
Red is hot.
And we'll move on to reading and consideration of minutes of the previous meeting.
Your Honor, I have a motion to amend the minutes.
Okay?
So at approximately the 1 hour, 1 minute and 22-second mark, the minutes where I was speaking were recorded as saying where they have been, what do they want to change, and how to move forward together. What I actually shared was where we've been, what do we want to do differently, and how do we move forward as a cohesive team.
All right. Could you get a written copy of that to Miranda? Oh, she already did?
Yeah, let me-
Great, fantastic,
Thank
thank
you.
you. You bet.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to amend the minutes as outlined. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve the minutes as amended. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as amended. Any discussion?
Your Honor, I would like to also amend the minutes. There are a couple of things I just want to make sure that we add in there. I'm not sure exactly what page it's on because these are quite lengthy, but there's a paragraph that begins, Ms. Cossey asked where in the code it mentions that the council members only have 2 minutes. Further down there, there was a motion that said, in that same motion, for each item requiring a council bill will be created and information will be provided to the city clerk no later than 12 p.m. on Thursday, April 25th. Then it says to be forwarded on to the mayor, city attorney, and city administrator. I'd like to make a note that I went back and watched the video to make sure I did say this. I said acting city administrator because we do not currently have a full-time city administrator. That person has been voted out. Also, in addition to that, I believe it's continuing on in that same paragraph. The minutes omit an example provided by Mr. Snow. Ms. Lease had asked about changing ordinances and how often they change, and we gave examples of how ordinances are changed to fit circumstances. Mr. Snow in that meeting gave an example of an ordinance that you put forth, Mr. Mayor, restricting people's time to talk and what they could do in meetings, and I'd like to make sure that the minutes reflect that example provided by Mr. Snow.
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second to further amend the minutes. And you got it?
Yeah, I got a video.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have another motion to accept the minutes as,
Well, the motion on the floor was
Amended.
to accept the minutes, and then the motion to amend passed, so now we go back to the motion to accept.
yep, all right. We've got a motion and a second to accept. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So, just a brief statement here. The absence of certain council bills from today's meeting agenda is due to specific procedural requirements and timelines not being met. Under our city code, the city attorney is required to draft all council bills. The attorney received requests and samples of the bills late Thursday when he was in court and promptly responded the following Friday morning as requested by Councilmember Cossey. Her request asked for Mr. Daly to provide responses if updates or revisions were necessary. Mr. Daly included a thorough explanation of his issues identified in the council bills as noted in your packets. No subsequent revisions or updates were provided, including the bill pertaining to Mr. Martin. The clarity on whether Mr. Martin's matter was an emergency or not was not communicated, which is crucial for the inclusion on a special meetings agenda. Moreover, this meeting was called for a specific purpose, and as such, only items outlined in the predetermined agenda are discussed. The agenda itself was posted on Friday, adhering to the required 24-hour notice period. It's important to note that weekends are excluded from this 24-hour calculation period as per Sunshine Law. An attempt to adjust the agenda came late Sunday evening, requesting additions, but due to the lack of 24-hour notice, these could not be accommodated. Any amendments to the agenda at this point need to meet the criteria of an emergency or pertain directly to topics arising during the meeting itself. All right. Should there be any request to amend the agenda further, an explanation under the Sunshine Law justifying such an amendment will be required. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to address something you said, which is false. So you said that I got these to Mr. Dowley late on Thursday. That is incorrect. If you will check the timestamp, you will see that it was actually an hour before my deadline of noon. I sent those approximately 11 a.m. So either you were misinformed or Mr. Dowley didn't check the timestamp.
All right. Noted. Okay. We will move on to old business.
The second reading of Council Bill 24-23, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Neutron Holdings Incorporated, DBA Lime, a Delaware corporation, for scooter rental in the city of Carthage, Missouri.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor. I do want to say that I am for the scooters going into place. There has been a slight change since they were last discussed, though. The limited or the local partner that was going to be picking those up and doing the local work has changed. So it's a little bit different than originally proposed. And I know Ms. Allmendinger had a previous engagement tonight, so she's not able to speak to that in any addition at this moment in time. But again, I'm for those going into place. And I'll pause there for anybody else to have any comments.
Anything else?
We just wanted the time limit for people to come forward and speak. I'm all for it. I think it's progress for our city to have the Lime scooters. I did not have anybody come forward to say that they did not, so I'm also for them.
Okay.
And Dustin, would you, I apologize, that I had messaged Abby and I asked Abby how many rides people had taken. I thought that was kind of, it actually surprised me that the number of it was 21,000.
It was between 21 and 22,
Yes.
if I remember correctly.
And 8,000 of them, though, were during the month of August, which was Marion Days. But
That's correct.
I didn't even realize that they were used that much. So I am also for the Lime bikes.
Okay.
Sorry, Alan. Ultimately, I think I would prefer to know who that local partner is going to be or what the adaption's going to be, if that's still going to be serviced out of Tulsa.
I think that's what she said. Still serviced out of Tulsa, but they have a better way of tagging the bikes at this point. But I'd like the question, if we have to pick them up as a city, can we charge the company back still? And I know the third party was one of the reasons, but still, we should be reimbursed for any manpower that we use picking up the bikes.
And, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Dustin, in our meeting, when we had our committee meeting, how many times did she say they had to pick up bikes? I cannot remember.
If I remember correctly, it was fairly minimal.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4, but I can't state that exactly because it would be in those. But it wasn't a lot. But I do think that we need to make sure they are going to be picked up or do better geofencing and things, which she said they could do. She said that we could narrow the geofencing down where they have to return it within the range, so that's good.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different, if I remember correctly, for this year. It's not a take and charge. They have replaceable batteries. So it's a case of them bringing a fully charged battery and swapping that out. But beyond that, picking things up if needed, if they're left outside of the, I believe it was a parking designated area.
Yeah, kind of to Mr. Edge and Ms. Schramm's point, I was just curious about if we determined who that local logistics partner is. And again, I'm all for this as well. I was just curious if that would potentially cut against our city departments and potentially take away resources from them. But it sounds like if there's a third party outside the city that
Can you tell what she detailed in the note?
I don't know.
On how the company could not hire another third party for this area because of liability? And they were going to use Tulsa still to pick them up, but they were assured that they would be picked up better because of the tagging of the bikes.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, so are we looking at?
Ultimately,
tabling?
I'd like to table that,
Okay.
and again, I'm not wanting to stop it by any means. I just want to make sure that we fully understand where that servicing is going to come from. If it's from Tulsa, again, to Ms. Schramm's point, if we have the opportunity, if city staff does have to step in and move things, then is there an opportunity to charge the company for that time?
Gotcha.
Chelsea might know these.
Hey,
Chelsea?
I didn't want to interrupt because
Nope.
I've never done this before.
Feel free.
So Abby actually had me sit in her spot so I can help answer some of these questions. Now, I don't know if we could get maybe a reimbursement for picking them up. What I do know is there is a system that they said was not in place last year that we could call them and they'll be down within 2 hours to pick it up. So that would minimize us having to pick them up at all. So realistically, we would just always call them and we wouldn't use any of our staff.
That's good to know.
Thank you.
I'm not opposed to the Lime scooters either, but I do think that as we've had last year, we had them come in and widened our geofencing to make them an alternative transportation mode for people in the city to go back and forth across town. My concern is if we don't know who's going to be picking them up, and we don't know, we can say, well, they have to be returned to a parking place. Well, if we're returning them to a parking place, then we're kind of defeating the purpose as an alternative mode of transportation unless we have parking places all over town. So I know that there were some citizens who had them in their yards and places like that. I don't know if someone just decided that they wanted to end their ride there or if they were intended to park there. So that's my concern, is that we still have those things that are a question. And so I would second Mr. Edge's motion to table this until our next meeting.
Okay, so is that the motion to table 2423 until the first regular council meeting in May
Yes, sir. Well,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Mr.
Yes, correct.
first?
May I say something? How long did Abby say that it would be, when we had our committee meeting, that it would be until we could get the Lime bikes released if we don't get the contract signed until then? Because I've already had, I probably had 7 residents contact me and tell me, you know, they count on it for work. I had one person call me and say she picked up somebody and gave them a ride home from work one day, and they said, oh, stop, there's a Lime bike, just let me have that. That's how I usually get back and forth every day. So I just hate to cut it short a whole month if that's what it was going to be, and I believe that's was close to a month. If, and, you know, because it sounds like everybody's for it. So, you know, and I would use my personal time to go pick up a bike if I had to, and someone called me to go pick up a bike. But I'm just saying, it's just, you know, those of us that have transportation and stuff, we sometimes take it for granted. I know I do. And I just want to make sure, and it's such a neat thing for the city. I have so much fun sitting at the park and watching all the kids and the people ride, and a whole month it's a big lot of the time. I'm just asking for consideration of that.
No, I completely hear that. And do you know the timeline by chance?
I don't. I would probably say about 2 weeks, but that is just a guess.
Okay.
If it does help, I will say I took phone calls last year. I was the administrative assistant, so I took phone calls for the complaints, and it was under 10 that were like, can you come get this out of my yard? So if that helps, I mean, it was about 10 citizens.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second on the table to table Council Bill 2423 until the first meeting in May. Is that any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I just abstain because there's no reason. I'm not trying to fight, I'm just not, I just
Okay.
don't want to wait. But if it's only 2 weeks, then I was okay with that.
And Miss Lisa, I'm not trying to fight either.
I
I
know.
want to know.
We're on the same committee, so that's why I keep looking
Yeah.
at you for these questions, so please.
Sure.
Okay,
Were there any no's over here?
okay. So one no and one abstention. All right, Council Bill, or motion passes. All right. Item 2.
Discuss special counsel options for city attorney assistance.
Any discussion?
Your Honor, to assist the city with the best option for either a city attorney or an at-counsel, I've been conducting some research. The emphasis of my research has been for municipal law knowledge with short-term versus long-term options. I found a couple of firms with the expertise and bandwidth to serve us. At this time, I would make a motion that the Mayor Pro Tem, Alan Snow, and 2 city council attorneys, Derek Peterson and Tiffany Cossey, interview those firms and bring back a recommendation to the council.
Okay. The hiring process, I believe the mayor is supposed to appoint the committee. And we have to go through we've posted this position already. But if we're gonna solicit agencies that haven't replied to our post, I'm not so sure that we'll need a
Well, Mr. Mayor.
remote, or an opinion from Nate, but,
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think there's a distinction here. You are right, for city attorney positions, there has been a posting, but this isn't for the city attorney position. This is for the assistant to the city attorney that we agreed upon.
the city attorney has resigned. If there's no city attorney, there's not a purpose for an assistant. And if there is, then we need to go through the process of developing a job description for that and running that through the committee as a job description and through HR and get salaries, numbers, and all that stuff, in my opinion now.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Administrator, is that?
It's my opinion that that job does not exist yet, therefore it has to go through committee and be created before we can hire anyone.
Well, I think this would be an of-council position. I don't think that this would be a city employee.
Still to be appointed by the mayor, according to the code.
Is it? Because I read that for city attorney, but I didn't see, can you point to the place in the ordinances? I'm not trying to argue, I'm
Sure.
just trying to ask where it is in the ordinances. I do see that for city attorney, and I did read that carefully, but can you tell me where a person of council is appointed by the mayor only?
Well, so again, the position of assistant does not exist yet. So there's nothing that outlines it. However, the mayor is the chief executive of all employees, as the charter says, and so he would be the one to hire it unless we come up with a different procedure on hiring that person.
Well, except once again, this isn't an employee position. This is a special independent contractor that's of council. So that would not apply.
I still stand by what I said. When you guys are hiring someone to impeach the mayor, he graciously agreed to stay out of that, which is totally appropriate. But now you're hiring basically a city attorney or assistant city attorney, which, even though it's of council, still to be hired by the mayor and ratified by you guys.
And so has the mayor made any progress on that?
On the,
Well, I mean, this motion was adopted a couple of weeks ago to
The-
hire somebody to help Nate. If you don't want the city
The,
council to research and bring this forward, then I assume you must be doing it.
the,
Have you made any progress, Mr. Mayor?
no,
So then we're just going to be without a
Mayor, may I
city attorney.
speak?
sure.
That was made, but to me, I thought, when it was to assist Dally in what he was doing. Dally is leaving, he's going to be gone. How do you know that the next attorney would work well with whatever person is picked? If you're still going to have them assist? Or are you going to get an assistant and then fire them? I'm not sure.
So once again, this wouldn't be an employment position. This would
Okay.
be, I believe that it was anticipated to be of council, so an independent contractor. So there's no hiring and firing. It's not an employee position.
Okay.
And so what the mayor is trying to say, he kind of wants it both ways, and it looks like we're going into a position where we're not going to have any legal counsel because he's saying, or actually Mr. Dagnan's saying, and then the mayor's agreeing, that the council can't go out and solicit recommendations, but they're not doing anything either. And so we're just going to be rudderless, and we're going to have no city attorney or anyone of council to help us out. So the
So-
council is being proactive in trying to make recommendations.
But I also think, too, that you're also picking 3 council members that tend to vote the same direction every time. And
Well, that's fine, and I understand that, Ms. Lees, but once again, the mayor just admitted he's done zero toward this. And
Because it
so
was
we're
an-
trying to
it
move
was an-
toward this.
It-
Trying to get an assistant to help Mr. Daly, and while I do understand
It
that
was
he
an
has
assistant,
resigned,
so there's no point for an assistant.
he is still the
if
city attorney until May 10th. We need to get somebody
Right.
in now to work with Mr. Daly so that they can help guide us until we actually find someone to place into the city attorney position. I know never mind. I had a comment. I'm going to abstain from my vote.
I have a question. This assistant, who's going to pay him?
Well, I believe that would be the city, and given the fact that we
And
approved
then
that.
that would make them a city employee if they're paid by the city.
No, that's not correct, Mr. Taylor.
Well, if we're gonna contract with them, then we need a council bill for the contract.
There are lots and lots of people that do work for the city, Mr. Taylor, that are not city employers, city employees. They are independent contractors.
Okay, Sarah.
So once again,
Is
Mr. Mayor,
it-
if you
is
feel
that
that you're
what
the
we're
person to
looking
make
for
that
is-
appointment,
is a
when
council
could
bill?
we expect information on that?
If you are wanting a contract employee, then we need to have a council bill for a contract for that employee. And then we can solicit for a contract attorney for an assistant position.
So could you be more specific? When you say a contract for, now when you say for that person, you're talking about for a person of council?
I'm saying for anybody that you're hoping to hire on a contract basis as an attorney to assist the city attorney, they would have to have a contract, and that contract would require a council bill in order to develop that contract.
And so you're asking, just so that I'm clear, because there seems to have been some miscommunication many, many times over the last couple of weeks, so I want to make sure I'm absolutely clear, Mr. Mayor. Are you suggesting that we bring forward an ordinance to hire a specific person, or to hire a person of council in general, a person who is unnamed? What is your suggestion? Your suggestion, not Mr. Dagnan's.
I'm not looking at Mr. Dagnan. So if we want to have a contract prepared and ready, we need to have a contract developed so that we know what we're asking for and that anyone interested in that position knows what we're willing to do. We can't do that without a description of the position and what it is that we're asking.
Ms. Heckmaster is asking is that I believe that's what Ms. Heckmaster's motion is to put together a committee to interview people who would be interested, who we could then contract with and bring forward a council bill to hire for a contract with that firm.
I'm not aware of anybody who's expressed any interest. So I'm more than happy to put together a committee to interview once we have applicants. I have no problem with that whatsoever, but right now, we don't have anybody that's even applied or that knows what we're looking for.
There seems to be some confusion, Mr. Mayor. You seem to be confusing the assistant, the person who would be hired to assist and work alongside Mr. Dowley in his remaining time to get up to speed, to be an interim contractor with the city attorney position. They are not the same thing.
How would you get somebody up to speed that quickly? Because his last day is May 10th?
Well, many attorneys can do that, Miss Lisa. I'm not saying that they'll be perfect, but
No, but what
working
I'm-
alongside them for a week or even a few days is
Okay.
preferable to
So
nothing.
do you already have someone picked that you've talked to apparently? Because
So-
to get him in here that quickly, then that concerns me.
Well, I believe that Ms. Heckmaster has been reaching out to people to see if anyone
She's
is
been
interested.
checking, yes, she said she had.
Yes, to see if anyone is interested in filling this position, to be a recommendation to work alongside Mr. Dowley for whatever time he has remaining so that they can get up to speed. And clearly, the mayor has said he's done absolutely nothing in regard to this, so somebody actually needs to care for the city and get this
That's
get
not
this
what the mayor
position
said.
filled.
Please don't put words in people's mouths, but say your facts. You're very, very smart, and we know that. But please just say the facts, don't attack.
Well, I mean, that is a fact. He literally just said he's done nothing toward it. He doesn't even know the difference between the two positions.
By city policy, if
There-
we're gonna hire a contracted employee, we have to put out an RFP, and we have to give everybody the chance to bid on it. The RFP has to say what we want that person to do. And if you would like staff to start working on that, we can start working on that, but that's how the policy reads.
Can I ask one more question? Tiffany, and I'm asking you because we're the ones conversing kind of right now. So if you proceed to go ahead and work out a contract to do just that, and what he was just saying, can't get my head thoughts right, sorry, apologize for not getting that. But I just want to know how it works. Like when you guys contract something for the street department and you let people bid on it, is that how you do a contract for something like this?
Well, apparently not always, because before you were on the council, Ms. Lees, the mayor brought forth a proposal to hire Lauber Law Firm. He had a specific firm in mind, and he brought it to the council. And so there was, as far as I'm aware, there were no RFPs, and there was no bidding on this. So this kind of comes back to another one of the situations where when the mayor does it, it's fine, but when the council wants to do it, it's not.
I thought the mayor was allowed to appoint. Am I incorrect?
The mayor has the authority to hire emergency counsel ratified by you guys. You did ratify it. You guys do not have the authority to hire emergency counsel.
Right,
without
that is true. We do not have the independent, and nor does the mayor have the authority to hire someone without the council. But what our former administrator, Mr. Dagnan, here is saying is that we have to put out an RFP and we have to get bids, but that isn't the way it's been done in the past. When Lauber Law Firm was hired, I don't believe an RFQ or an RFP was put out.
Lauber was hired for an emergency basis because of a conflict that our city attorney had. The mayor has the authority to do that. You all voted for it, but you're talking about hiring someone to permanently assist us for at least a period of time. That is an RFP.
No, you're mistaken. So there is no permanence to it. It is temporary. And also, the Lauber Law Firm was not an emergency ordinance, nor was it signaled to the council that they were hired for a specific purpose.
I disagree with you.
Well, read the minutes, Mr. Dagnan. I think you'll see that I'm right.
All right. So are we going to proceed with the contract or?
Well,
and-
once again,
and the-
Mr. Mayor, I'm still trying to get clarification. Are you asking us to bring forward a contract for a specific person or for a position? I
For a
asked that, but it's not
position.
been answered.
For a position, because we don't have any specific people interested as far as I'm aware.
And so if we did have specific people interested, we could bring forward, I would assume that we could bring forward a proposed contract for those people. Actually, I believe the mayor has the ability to appoint, but the council has the ability to appeal if the mayor refuses to hire. So we'll look into contracts, Mr. Mayor.
I thought you were asking, I apologize. I thought we were asking for a committee to look into it,
Right.
not
So-
for an
right,
actual
the
contract.
committee,
Well, the
So
mayor
can someone
seems,
please clarify that?
well, they
the
need
mayor
to
seems
be
unwilling to form that committee.
both. Pardon?
Well, you.
I just
you-
said I'd be glad to set a committee up as soon as we have a description of what we're looking for and applicants to fill the position. It takes 30 seconds to appoint a committee, so it's not that I'm refusing to. I'm perfectly willing to set up a committee, but we need someone to interview.
With our May 10th deadline for Mr. Dally, what is the timeline for interviewing for applicants for that position?
At this point, sir, we only have one applicant. So we are trying to garner some more applicants before we do interviews. We do realize that we need to move very quickly.
I mean, part of our reason that we feel like we need to get a temporary council to work with Mr. Dally is, I mean, the biggest need is city court and getting city court backed up.
Exactly.
And so if we don't have anyone, applicant or contractor, to take over city court, we're gonna have issues with city court
You're-
being backed up.
You're exactly correct. That's right. So we need to get someone in, and we need to quickly, but we need to get applicants. We need to have someone to interview, so, yeah.
So I have another question. I don't remember the exact time, 3 years ago possibly, there was discussion about moving city court to county. Is there a possibility of moving city court temporarily to county, or does it have to be a permanent move?
It would have to be a permanent move, and I would say our court is working quite well right now, so I would not suggest that, but it would have to be permanent if you guys want to do it.
I'm not in favor of moving it permanently. I just didn't know if there was a temporary option that we could use so that we don't get backed up in city court.
Right. Yeah, I believe, at least back then when they were discussing it, it was an all or nothing kind of thing. We can make a phone call, but I'm pretty sure that that's still the way it is, so. I will make a call. All right. So is the motion, or are we moving to develop the contract and the description for an assistant? Or an assistant's firm or position?
So I would say, I would make the motion that we combine this discussion with the motion, or with the new business, item number 1, the discussion of hiring another city attorney or hiring a law firm for counsel, because I think these two issues run together. before we make any motions.
I would second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second to move the discussion of item number 2 in old business to combine with item number 1 in new business. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Discuss hiring another city attorney or hiring a law firm for counsel.
So one of the reasons I wanted to see this on the agenda this evening is just that I'm not certain that a full-time city attorney is needed. One of the things I would like to see us explore is to hire an independent third-party law firm. There is nothing in the charter that requires that we have a city attorney on staff. We currently have ordinances, but if it is something that we decide that the city no longer needs to have a full-time city attorney on staff, those ordinances can be changed. I don't necessarily have a bent one way or the other. I'm interested in hearing what my fellow council members think about this. Mr. Snow has served on the council the longest, and so would have the longest memory. I know Mr. Daly didn't come on full-time, or I guess 3/4 time until the last couple of years. So with having the longest memory, Mr. Snow, could you share your thoughts?
The city attorney really has two different functions for the city. One function is city court and prosecuting city court. The other function is providing support to council, reviewing council bills, reviewing ordinances, reviewing the things that, the charter, reviewing those things that are brought forward to the council to either add new ordinances or amend existing ordinances. So there are really two different functions that the city attorney serves as. I believe the city court is probably a pretty full plate, but I don't know how much time is spent on council ordinances, developing, researching, those types of things. So it's kind of a two different balls to juggle at the same time. At the time we brought Mr. Daly on full-time, we felt that the council ordinances were council bills were taking too long to get on agendas. And so that was our reason to bring him on full-time or increase his hours, was to bring him on so that he could get those council bills on the agenda quicker. And so that was our purpose of doing that at that time.
I'd like to add that, Miranda, can you tell us about how many cases are in the courts right now?
On a good day, 300 to 400.
Wow.
Busier days, depending on.
We've got a.
Who do we got back there?
Jessica's back there.
Jessica's
If you
back
don't
there.
mind, Mayor.
Per month, and that's 2 court days a
Okay.
month, so.
And
Depends on how people plea, I guess.
as far as full-time, I mean, we're a pretty high-maintenance city right now, so I do think we would have better success with hiring someone full-time than hiring someone part-time, my opinion.
And so one of the things I'm wondering, it just occurred to me, as you mentioned, you've already started advertising for the position. Are we advertising for that position as a full-time city attorney with the existing salary that's being paid to Mr. Daly? So it's my understanding, though, that we were saying that that position was only a 30-hour-a-week position for Mr. Daly at this full salary. So we're not really advertising for apples to apples, right? I mean, we would need to either find somebody who is willing to work 30 hours a week. I think we should advertise for the same arrangement, and I don't think that's what we're doing now, which could be the reason for the results that we're getting. So I would think that to get more applicants, we would either, if we wanted to retain a full-time city attorney, we would need to advertise for somebody 30 hours a week, because that's the arrangement Mr. Dally said he's currently under for that salary, or we would need to budget to increase the salary if we wanted a true full-time city attorney.
Each salary has a range, and so the range is advertised. So we would fill the range according to who we hire and what the needs are. The 30-hour-a-week thing is, I've never seen Nate work 30 hours a week. I think since he started tracking his time, he worked 50 and then 60 the week before. So, but there is a salary range that we can appropriately adjust to who we hire.
However, he did on a number of occasions, though, say that it was only for 30 hours a week. So once again, I feel that we need to be apples to apples. So if we are saying that that salary was set for a person to only be 30 hours a week, which, by the way, is not what the salary study reflects, but that is how it's been paid, and that's what Mr. Dally indicated that he was only required to do, I think that that requirement should be posted, or else, I don't know what the budget looks like. I'm not on the budget committee. That would be something for Mr. Snow and the three others on the budget committee to indicate whether there's wiggle room to increase that to a true full-time city attorney, somebody who's not just 30 hours a week. But I do know that when Ms. Heckmaster was getting quotes, it seemed like the retainer was fairly consistent with the existing city administrator's salary, if I recall correctly. So getting someone of council who would charge approximately the same amount that we're paying for city administrator could allow us to either, or not city administrator, sorry, city attorney, could allow us to break even or potentially save money depending on the degree of work that they do, because for the city attorney, not only do we have a salary, but we also pay benefits, right? There's insurance benefits, employment taxes, things like that. So hiring an outside party, we could end up actually saving money potentially, or breaking even. So I'm not sure that financially it would necessarily be an issue or more of a burden.
Mayor, if I could.
Sure.
So dealing with other cities all the time, there's basically two ways cities do it. They will hire a full-time city attorney or a city attorney that meets their needs, and then they'll usually have a backup that's on retainer in case that person has a conflict, and that's how they get through. And I would also add to Mr. Snow's comment, there's actually a third element, which is providing legal support to all the departments. The police department typically needs legal support. I mean, so, that's part of it too. Option two is you hire a reputable municipal law firm, and you pay them, and they will come to your court, and they will come to your council meetings, and they'll do everything for you. Again, that when you're talking about travel expenses and whatever, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose on that, but those are typically the two ways that cities do it.
In my opinion, from just a pure convenience and best use of time for all city staff as well as the attorneys, it's far better to have someone in the building working for the city than it is to have someone who's traveling back and forth. When council bills need to be written and researched, it's far more convenient to go next door or go down the hall to an office rather than to call someone in Joplin or Springfield or wherever it is that they may be coming from, and to try to get your point across or understand what they're looking at and what the issues are. So that's not a big financial deal breaker one way or the other, but just from the pure convenience to have all the department heads have the ability to come in and talk with the city attorney in his office when they're working on a bill that directly affects their department. That's a big factor, in my opinion.
Mayor, if
Yes.
I may, in today's world with Zoom and all the technology features, we can accomplish the same thing.
I understand, but Zoom is not as good as staring somebody right in the face. But I totally understand what you're saying, and many things get accomplished with that. So, yeah, I'm not,
I think you guys fully understand, and actually, it works both ways. Cities accomplish it both ways. If you hire a municipal law firm, that attorney may have 5 cities, and so, that they represent. So when you're calling them, they may be in court for another city, they may be doing something for someone else, and so there perhaps is a time lag. Whereas I think if you ask any of our department heads, being able to walk into Nate's office and get questions answered has been a huge asset. Again, I'm not trying to sway you either way, because it could work either way, but just letting you know that having Nate in the building was a huge asset for us.
Mr. Mayor,
sir.
on the
Yes, sir.
current posting, I remember reading it, but I don't recall the specifics. And could you maybe give us a little bit more detail on that, just so I'm up to speed? Is it the 30 hours or the 40, or,
I believe it was,
I don't remember if it stated
I
that.
believe it was full-time is what.
It's posted as a full-time
understand,
position
yeah.
with the range, starting at where Nate is at, but then, of course, an expanded range.
Right.
Ranges in salary or ranges
Salary
in hour?
study has
Salary range.
ranges
Okay.
for each position as outlined. So every position has a range from low to high, so.
So just making sure I fully understand, is that thinking that would be starting at 30 hours, or or 40, or, again, just want to make sure I'm on the same
Right.
page. Not questioning
No,
anything.
and again, yes, and I appreciate that, and I know where you're coming from, and so, after COVID, 30 hours is a full-time pay. So that is a full-time position. It's a little bit of a misnomer, because we wanted Nate to work at least 30 hours, so he'd be full-time. I can't remember the last time he only worked 30 hours. But the position does say, I just looked at it, it does say full-time with the salary range, and the starting pay is where Nate is at right now. If that helps, maybe, I don't know.
So I guess ultimately, are we anticipating, if we were to move forward with hiring a city attorney, are we anticipating 30 hours, or are we anticipating more?
Oh, I'm sure it would be more. I mean, Nate works more than 30. so-
And I'm not
But,
questioning that.
Nate, the new attorney probably would not have the same additional duties as Nate does at this time. So it could be that 30 will do it. It just depends on what the needs are of the city. And, some months are back to back, and he's working 80 hours a week, and then the next month may slow down, and 30
Sure.
is more than enough.
Yeah, it ebbs
yeah.
and flows, but I think ultimately the concern is we don't want to see city court come to a halt.
Exactly.
And I think that is
Exactly.
the intent of the temporary
Mhm.
engagement that could be out there.
One thing for, HR-wise, for everybody to remember, we actually advertise for a full-time exempt employee. So as an exempt employee, we are technically not supposed to track their hours. It is, if they get their job done in 1 week in 30, they're done. If the next week it's 60. So it's advertised as a full-time exempt employee, which will read to the employee as, you got to do all this work. If you get all this work done, and you're efficient, great. If it takes you more time, it does. But we're not advertising number of hours, we're advertising a full-time exempt.
I think that answers my question. I may have not asked it the best way.
Sorry, I probably should have said that to start with, sorry.
Well,
Thank you.
Mr. Dagnan, could you please tell us what the range is that's being advertised?
The low end of the range is 73,944. We did not put the high end of the range in the ad, so I don't know. I would have to get with HR and find out what that is.
Thank you.
Yes, and this is the range established by our last salary study.
So I'd be curious, if we're starting at where Nate is at today, we have the ability to go for the full range of what the salary study showed. Why would we not make the range, the low end of the range, the starting, rather than where Mr. Daly is with his time and years of experience? He's not at the bottom end of the range.
He is.
He hasn't moved up the 3 steps that he should have to be at the first step.
Yes, sir. I think we're saying the same thing, Mr. Snow. The bottom of the range has moved up as the salary study has moved up, but he's still at the bottom, and that was a strange thing, which you probably don't want me to explain, but I will, that happened with the McGrath study. So he has got the raises and everything all the other employees have gotten as a full-time employee, but he's still at the bottom of the range.
Okay, thank you.
I would have to find it, but I have an email from Tracy Cox that said that Nate started on something like step 3 or step 4. So I'm not certain that, there's a miscommunication somewhere. Either Mr. Dagnan or Ms. Cox may be misinformed, but,
Well, prior to the McGrath salary study, we had steps. So when we did the salary study, it realigned all those steps to be with current salaries. So he may have started on step 3, or he may have been at step 3 prior to the salary study. Once the salary study came out, if they weren't at the appropriate range, then they came to step 1 of that range.
okay.
Then each year, an employee should move through the ranges until they get to the top of the range. Then, once they get to the top of the range, obviously, every year that top moves. So there's really, it's kind of a moving target, that.
Okay, so what you're saying is then probably when Tracy Cox was saying that he started on step 3, she was referring to the old structure.
Yeah, I mean, Nate's been here for quite a few years, and obviously, there's been probably 3 salary studies since Nate's been the city attorney. I know there was 2015, there was a 2008 or 9, so there were there have been several salary studies in that time period. So if he started, I don't recall exactly what he said,
I think he started in about 2007.
Yeah.
I believe,
2007, so
something like that.
17 years ago. It may have been step 3, but step 3 is probably step 1 today.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
So thank you, that's very well explained, and something else the council should understand is, while we're in the implementation of the salary study, which this is the last year, whoever we hire must start at step 1. So that is the rules of the salary study. So whoever we hire must start at step 1, which, next year we'll be out of the salary study and we'll be able to adjust those, but that's the policy at this point.
And I'm sorry, did I interrupt? Oh, sorry, okay. That 73,944 that you gave, is that including with cost of living adjustments, or was that the salary study is adopted many years ago?
So that is the current step 1, so that is, as Mr. Snow explained, after everything's happened to it, to get that to be step 1, because we started the salary study, I think, 3 years ago. So that's the current step 1 according to following
So-
the salary study.
So the way this salary study implementation has been was to get everyone to step 1 during implementation. And with that came cost of living allowances and merit increase. So when we do the budget, we will budget for a cost of living, which will be in July 1st, and a merit increase, which will be given at January 1st. So depending on what that number is, it will shift that whole range, that amount. I don't recall off the top of my head, but it seems like the last couple of years, we've given about a 5.5 or 6% total increase in those steps. So where they start will depend, at July 1st, that bottom will come up, whatever amount is agreed to budget for the step increase, and then the cost of living, or the cost of living increase, then the merit increases will come in January, so that there will be an increase in that bottom step.
Okay. So, I mean, I would suggest, given that we've advertised this as a full-time position, the requirement for the previous attorney was not full-time, as he said many times. I would suggest that we gather some quotes from outside firms that might be willing to step in and serve as counsel, at least for the interim, and see what kind of quotes we get. So we put out an RFP or an RFQ, I've heard it called two different things, and see if we get firms submitting bids, and then we can figure out from there if we get interested firms. We can compare that against the applications that we get and decide what way we want to go at that point.
I would concur with that idea, and like Mr. Dagden, I think, very well said, I could see where it could kind of go both ways, whether you have a full-time city attorney or firm, but the overarching thought in my head as this discussion has been going is the financial side. So to your point, Ms. Cossey, of maybe we just at least get a better grip on what that might look like, I would align there.
All right, so you would like us to put together an RFP and get ready to send that out for, and are you suggesting using the Missouri Municipal League list, or how, or do you just want to send it out in professional organizations or professional literature? Where would you like to advertise this, I guess is my question.
I mean, and anybody can feel free to jump in and make suggestions. Mr. Snow may, having been on the council longer, may have some better ideas. I mean, definitely, the MML definitely has a list, and I have already downloaded that, of municipal law firms that might be able to do that. But I do think that we should also advertise in a way that gives local law firms an opportunity to see that, because the list for the MML is relatively short, and I'm certain that it does not include all firms who might be able to provide the kind of service that we need.
Okay, so
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a suggestion, so often what we do on this is put out the RFP, which is, it's required that we advertise, so anybody that wants to respond can, and then we can specifically send it to all of the MML, so that way they all get it, but then anybody that wants to answer the RFP can.
And if I'm correct, the advertisement includes the local paper
Local.
and our website.
Right.
Are the two main methods of advertising, whether it's a contract for street or parks or anybody, those two methods are what we use for requesting quotes or proposals.
Correct, and you can also add that we probably would put it on social media, we started that tradition, and we'll probably just ask MML to advertise it for us as well, and they'll do that for us.
All right.
I would agree that I think looking at both, continue accepting applicants for a city attorney position, or advertising for a firm, and we can see what kind of applicants or what kind of proposals we get from both, make a decision at a later time.
They do need municipal experience, though.
Oh,
Right,
absolutely.
even the firm. Okay, I'm just
Absolutely,
double checking.
No, well, actually, I believe the city attorney says they must be a member of the Missouri Bar. The judge does not have to be, so the attorney, we do have to have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what would the timeline be to get that posted?
Oh, we can put that together, I mean, in a day, probably, by the time we get the.
I would like to ask for an update at our May 13th meeting.
Probably.
That's our next meeting.
That's not a
May
problem.
14th.
I would hope that we might have some responses by then, because the turnaround would be just like quick to put that together and get it advertised, so.
And
All right, so would we have a motion to do this?
yes, I so motion that we put out an RFP to advertise for independent contractors.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to put out an RFP for independent contracting firms, municipal law in the media as discussed, the MML, the local and regional publications, online. Any discussion?
I do have one question, just
Okay.
because I don't know if there is a constraint on here. Are we able to, in the advertisement, add that applications will be considered as received? So if we get a stellar proposal from a firm that has municipal experience, can we consider that as proposed, or do we have to close those on a specific date and then consider all applicants at that time?
We can do it either way,
I-
but we usually do it the first way that you mentioned, so, we just, pretty much it's open until filled,
It's a-
or
yeah,
open until.
until it's clo-
Now, with
until the end date.
RFPs, we definitely try to suggest a date that they must be in. And that's a wise idea, but yes, we can do it that way.
And at that time, is that where a committee's involved, or
Definitely.
okay, that's what I was wondering, just how that flows.
So given the time constraints that we're under, I know nobody wants to have an additional special meeting. I think everybody's just ready to go home tonight, come back on May 14th. But since Mr. Dowley's resignation is effective as of the 10th, would it be appropriate for Miranda or Tracy, well, Tracy's off, right, temporarily. So would it be appropriate to ask Miranda to send out a note if we've received some bids, and if we have some to consider at that time, come together just for the special purpose of considering those?
I have no problem with that. I think
I have no
that's,
problem either.
right. But,
Send them out and then
yeah, no, I think, yeah, we can keep everybody updated, and when we've got, enough to interview, we can put one together pretty quick, so.
Okay.
All right? All right, so I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we will get to work on that.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include all the items that were voted and passed at the previous meeting.
All right, all right. And we've still got additional items on the agenda for tonight that,
The item that's on the agenda, I don't believe was one of the items that was voted on at the previous meeting.
this one was emailed to me asking to be put on the agenda, and I do believe there were two others tagged on the,
Is the intent of this one to discuss the billing that,
no, this is
We
to
didn't-
discuss training with the Lauber Law Firm or other alternate possibilities.
for new council members and,
I don't know if you remember that. It was a very brief discussion. Actually, you and I talked about it to see if you were okay with co-sponsoring putting that on the agenda. Because we originally, there was a potential for training, and then we discovered that it was the Lauber Law Firm that was putting it on, and we had already motioned that we were no longer using legal law services from the Lauber Law Firm. So this was put on to discuss whether we wanted to fund that.
okay, this is
or
just
not.
discussion, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
okay.
okay. So do we want to go ahead and discuss item 2 before we address the motion, or do you want to make the motion now?
We can go ahead and discuss my motion.
Oh, okay. Was there a second?
Oh, second.
I have a motion and a second to add to the agenda items that were deleted from the agenda. Any discussion?
Your Honor,
No.
Missouri Revised Statute 610.020 only requires a tentative agenda be posted, and that amendments or adjustments to that agenda can be made in less than 24 hours.
Okay. Any other further
Are we-
comments?
I'm unclear of what's being done right now.
There were several motions made for potential council bills. And,
The ones that Dally reviewed.
Right.
Oh, I have them all right here.
right. So,
But
there are no council bills on the list that were approved and signed off on by the city attorney, as they were not appropriate or did not meet the right criteria.
right. And I agree
So
with that.
that cannot be added to the agenda at this time. If his opinion gave multiple changes that could be made in order to address those, to make them eligible, and that those changes were not commented on. So at this time, we cannot put those items on the agenda, as they are not legitimate council bills to be discussed.
So, Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
So Ms. Lisa, the mayor is incorrect. If you read our process for a council bill, nowhere in there does it say that the city attorney has the ability to refuse to put them on the agenda because he disagrees with them, or because he believes that they conflict in any way with existing statute. He only has a procedural role, and his role is to make sure that they are in the proper format. He is not an elected official.
He did not refuse to put them on the agenda. He refused to sign off of them because he did not feel like they were legal. And I read some of the things that were changed. I put a side by side. I've got it all right here. Some of the wording would affect everyone. It would affect a lot of people.
So, Ms. Lisa, I'm wondering, have you read our procedures for a council bill? Because if you have, you will notice he does not have the authority to prevent that from going onto the agenda. This is
No.
the council's meeting, the
But
city
the mayor does
council's
have
meeting.
the chair of the room, because I also talked to an attorney, and the chair does have the right to determine what goes onto the agenda and to shut conversation down. And I know you said even they didn't have time to limit the time people speak. You mentioned that in our last meeting, but that's incorrect also. The chair may limit the time allotted to speakers, including the body, members of the body, and that's in Rosenbach Rule of Order. I've been reading a lot. I have worked a lot this week.
Well, that's great, and I do applaud you for reading that. However,
Not
it's-
just reading it,
It's,
getting into it, talking to people. Please quit demeaning me. I don't appreciate that at all.
please quit what? I'm sorry?
Demeaning me. No, don't clap. I don't want anybody to clap. I just want,
I'm not sure how it's demeaning you to say that I appreciate the fact that you've been reading up on this. However, even though that's in Rosenberg's rules, the limitation of time that the council members speak, that is not in an ordinance anywhere. And so, and in addition, if you have been speaking with an attorney, it wasn't the mayor who refused to forward this. This was Mr. Dally. Mr. Dally is not an elected official. He does not have the ability to say what goes on the agenda and what doesn't.
but the chair
His role-
does.
Huh?
But the chair does.
But it never went to the chair. And so Mr. Dally
Yes, it
actually
did.
breached his duty to
No,
the city
he did not.
council.
Mr. Dally.
His duty is to only make sure that they are in the right format and to put these onto the agenda. That is his only role.
No.
It is clearly a ministerial role. He did not perform it. It
No,
is a breach
you're
of
wrong.
ethics, and it is a breach of his duty to this council.
No.
It never made it to the
All right,
mayor to
yeah.
sign off on.
If it's not on
Mr.
the
Dally.
agenda, it's my understanding for the Sunshine Law, if it's not on the agenda, it cannot be discussed.
You're incorrect, Mr. Taylor.
But
Call me incorrect if you want to. I don't care.
All right.
I would like to
But
add,
what
though,
you
that
guys are
this,
trying to do is illegal.
Mr. Dally is
And it's a
required
definite
to
breach of ethics.
write or co-write and approve any council bill or resolution that goes on the agenda. He did not approve them. He did not write them. He offered suggestions that would make them usable, the suggestions were not taken. Therefore, I decided not to put them on the agenda because without the city attorney's okay on them, they're not legitimate to be discussed.
I would like to add, though, that this body does have the authority to overrule the mayor. We do have a veto override ability of the mayor, so any decision the mayor makes,
He's also
we
an
can
elected
overrule.
official, just as you are.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. We have 10 people that can override one person, so.
You may be able to override me, but nonetheless.
Motion
they
to
were-
adjourn.
They were not on the agenda, and they
Second.
cannot be added to the agenda for this evening.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
But there was no discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Not required to adjourn.
Not required for
It's-
adjournment.
So